right, Bell Tire Nation. Here we go. Final game of the JWHL. Bell Tire Washington Pride. Starting us out, Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Martin, Mackenzie Flanagan. With Streeter in the net. There we go. Washington Pride with possession in neutral. Cut off by Flanagan, picked up by Dobbs. Dobbs behind her own net, going up the wall, finding Markovich at the half. Hitting Agbe in the backhand, sliding it in for a dump into the Washington zone. Behind Washington's net, Washington picks up possession at the half wall, going up top, going in, and that's going to be on net. They'll get covered up to freeze play.
Check my zipper, make sure it's up when I come around you.
We get going again. We are going to have Bellucci out there with Kazarowski. Hewer. Bellucci, Martin, and Mackenzie Flanagan on D. Bellucci gains his own. Down into the Washington corner. Hits the brakes. Going back over to Hewer. Hewer going to go up top to Flanagan. Flanagan walking. Shot in. Bouncing around in front. Washington gains possession. Goes back in on a weird bounce and is covered up by Washington's goalie with 16:09 on the clock. Defensive line change, bringing out Caitlin Flanagan and Morton. Hewer on the draw. Puck is down. Washington with possession. Gaining neutral. Caitlin Flanagan getting a stick on it. It's going to go deep into the Bell Tire zone behind their net. Washington picking it up. Centering pass blocked by Flanagan. Cleared out by Hewer. Hewer into the corner. Moving it up to the half wall. Kazarowski going into neutral. Offensive line change, bringing out Evans, Clemens, and Cruciano. Caitlin Flanagan moving it up into neutral. Washington getting it back into the Bell Tire zone. Morton to chase. Morton behind her own net, dumping it off to Flanagan. Flanagan moving it back around over to Clemens on the half wall. Clemens going to get hung up by Washington. Centering pass. Cleared momentarily by Flanagan. Shot back in by Washington down into the right corner of Streeter. Picked up by Flanagan. Moving it up the wall, coming back the opposite way, finding Morton in the corner. Morton's going to move it up, getting Clemens right below us. Puck shifted back in. Bell Tire needs to get this cleared out of their zone. Flanagan's going to go up the wall. That's going to miss its mark, but go down for an icing and get Bell Tire a line change. So that line change is going to bring back out Dobbs, Agbe, Markovich, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Bowman. Dobbs on the draw. 14:56 on the clock. Puck is down. Agbe sending it to the corner for Bowman. Bowman moving it up to the half wall. Picked up and cleared up, and now Washington with possession at their point. Markovich trying to get a stick on it. Picked up by Mackenzie. Flanagan moving it out to Markovich. All right, Bell Tire clearing their zone, breaking out through neutral, gaining the zone. Centering pass over to Agbe. Couldn't quite control it. Picked up by Dobbs in the corner. Dobbs trying to send it back up to the point. Intercepted by Washington. Picked up by Dobbs. Dobbs going to dump it deep. Going to go behind the Washington net where Agbe is to retrieve. Agbe in the corner. Waiting for support. Bellucci, Hewer stepping back in on ice. Washington moving it around the boards. Flanagan pinching in at the half wall. And that puck moved out into neutral by Washington. Kazarowski got her stick on it briefly before Washington dumps it in, and they go for a change. Picked up by Flanagan behind her net. Flanagan moving it up the wall. Touched by Washington, but clears the zone. And now Bellucci at half ice. Picked up here by Kazarowski. Hewer gaining the zone. Hewer shot in. Blockered aside by Washington's goalie. Martin checking back in on D here. Picked up out front on an errant pass by Kazarowski. Hewer trying to gain control, loses an edge, and Washington now coming down. Martin defending here. Martin pushing it wide. Shot in on net is gloved momentarily by Streeter, sent behind the net, where Flanagan picks up. Now Hewer. Hewer at the half wall, exiting the zone up to Kazarowski. Kazarowski's going to dump it in. Caitlin Flanagan jumping back in here with Evans, Cruciano, and Clements. Washington coming rink wide, trying to hit a pass to an open player. Martin to retrieve behind her net. Martin turning up ice. Martin looking for a little bit of space, finding it over to Clemens. Clemens in neutral. Up to Evans. Evans going to dump it in. Picked up to Clemens. Clemens with a backhand. Running into the goalie. We're going to get goalie interference. Unintentional collision by Clemens is going to, I believe, move this puck outside of the Washington zone, where Evans will take the draw with 12 minutes and 56 seconds. Beltire 2-1-1 on the weekend, looking for their third win here. Puck is down. Clemens stepping in to push that into the zone, and Evans with a quick shot from up top at the point gets blocked out front. And now Cruciano digging hard behind the Washington net. Evans picking up here for Cruciano. Evans coming back the other way, looking for support. Dumping it out to Caitlin Flanagan. Flanagan going to dump it back down in. And Evans on the half wall. Down in the corner now, battling. Markovic stepping in. Pass out by Washington's going to make it to neutral. Pass off the wall. Pass Flanagan. Martin to defend here. Gets her stick on it. Shoves her wide of the net. Down into the corner. Flanagan there. Martin picking that puck up. Martin now with room to skate. Martin 1-on-2 here. Martin gaining the zone, waiting for support. Down into the corner. Takes a shot. Blockered aside by the goalie, where Agbe was there, ready for a rebound. Picked up by Caitlin Flanagan in neutral. Dumping it back up to Markovic, who sends it in. Agbe to chase. Martin going to change with Flanagan, out jumping Mackenzie Flanagan and Morton with Colucci, Dobbs, Agbe. Washington gaining the Beltire zone, down into the corner to the left of Streeter. Morton down in the corner. Morton now being gobbled up by two Washington players. Finally that puck comes free, where Agbe sends it out to neutral. Washington dumps it back in behind the Beltire net. Morton dropping it back, picked up by Washington, centering pass. Shot from the slot on an open Washington player, sails the net, and is now picked up by Flanagan in the corner, up to Hewer. Hewer up to Kazarowski. It's stopped at half ice, and Washington comes back into neutral. That puck sent down, and an open Washington player is going to have a shot here. Nice block by Flanagan to block the centering pass from Washington. Washington now centering again, and now picked up by Hewer. Hewer in the corner, backhanding up to Kazarowski. Kazarowski going to dump it in and go for a change. Out is Caitlin Flanagan. Bowman on defense with Evans, Clemens, and Cruciano. Pass across ice, misses its mark to Cruciano, picked up by Washington as they go dangerously back towards their net and exit their zone into neutral. Cruciano chasing. That's sent deep into the Beltire zone, where it's going to be picked up by Caitlin Flanagan. Caitlin's going to move it to Bowman. Bowman to Cruciano at the half wall. Couldn't quite control it. Gets back in from Washington. Smothered up by Evans and Bowman. Now Cruciano backhanding it out with a little help from Washington. It's going to roll into their zone. Markovic, Dobbs, Agbe back out on ice for Beltire. Sent in, missing its mark. Icing is the call with 9 minutes and 54 seconds on the clock. All right, so we've got Markovic, Dobbs, Agbe, Caitlin Flanagan, and Bowman on ice for Beltire. Puck is down. Washington at the half wall in their own zone, covered up by Markovic, trying to break it out, and Washington gets into the Beltire zone where it's going to get covered up by Streeter just to freeze play. Dobbs on the draw here. Puck is down, stuck at the dot. Dobbs pushes it to the wall, now down into the corner where it's met by Bowman. Dobbs going up, finding Agbe. Agbe going to go off the wall, pass to herself. Interference, but no call there. Going down deep is Agbe. Jump back out onto the ice is Palucci, Hewer, Martin. Out there with Caitlin Flanagan and Agbe, moving it around the boards. It's going to be picked up at the half wall by Washington, and it's going to roll out of the zone where Flanagan will pick it up in neutral. Flanagan going wide to Martin. Martin going up top, finding Kazarowski. Kazarowski entering the zone. Going into a Washington player now. Washington with possession, breaking out to neutral. Martin gets a stick on it. Frees that play. Just shallow and neutral, and Palucci stripped up on the play. That's going to be a Bell Tire power play with 8:48 on the clock. I'm sorry, that was not a tripping. That was a hold. Either way, a power play for Bell Tire. So Bell Tire power play is going to be Hewer, Palucci, Kazarowski, Martin, Caitlin Flanagan. Hewer on the draw. Puck is down. Dropping it back is Kazarowski. That went just between Martin and Flanagan. Martin's going to chase it down in her own corner. Picking it up behind her net. Hitting the brakes. And turning. Spinning off a Washington player. Coming free. Coming up out. Finding Palucci. Palucci in neutral. Palucci almost gaining the zone. Hewer's going to back it out. Going over to Martin. Martin's going to spread it out over to Flanagan. Flanagan going to send it in, and Palucci loses an edge down there. Sent up the wall, picked up by Martin. Takes out a Washington player in the process, and now Hewer. Going to dump it deep for Palucci. Bell Tire trying to get their power play set up. Palucci's going to spread it out, go to Flanagan. Flanagan's going to go wide, looking for Palucci. Palucci held up on the play. Looks like she got a stick stuck in her skate. That's going to come down into the Bell Tire zone where it's picked up by Martin. Bell Tire went for a line change up to Markovich. Markovich passed through the legs over to Agbe. Agbe dumping it deep into the zone. Mackenzie Flanagan out on deep for Bell Tire with Martin. Agbe, Bell Tire's got 50 seconds remaining in this power play. They need to get this set up. Dumping it up to Flanagan. Flanagan to Markovich. Now down to Dobbs. Now they're getting settled in here. Markovich, Flanagan. Flanagan shot. Over top of the net, picked in by Martin. Martin sent it back out front of the net, and Flanagan keeps it in with a shin pass. Back out to Dobbs, now to Markovich. Markovich over to Flanagan. Flanagan dropping it to Martin. Martin tipping it in center. Couldn't quite connect. Picked back up at the point by Flanagan. Flanagan to Markovich. Markovich going over to Martin. Martin going back up top to Flanagan. Flanagan shot. It's deflected by Agbe, one-timer by Markovich goes wide, 6 seconds remaining. That was a good series on that power play by Bell Tire. That should be the end of it here as Markovich dumps it back in, and that line goes for a change. So out jumps Evans, Cruciano. Clemens is going to get immediately into action. Martin here at the half wall cuts off the player, gets it over to Flanagan, and dumps it over to Evans, who gets it out of the zone. Clemens trying to drive it deep into the Washington zone. Evans to help. Washington now with possession, and we've got Morton checked in on D for Bell Tire. Looks like Flanagan's getting ready to go for a change, but gets the puck instead as she passes it up to Clemens. Now we'll go for a change and bring out Caitlin. Shot in by Clemens is going to get blockered aside by the Washington goalie as she circles. Going up top to Caitlin. Caitlin making a move. Driving in towards the center. Gets picked out by Washington. And Clemens trying to keep it in. Flanagan recovering the puck here. Waiting as her team gets back on, almost on sides. We're going to have an offsides call. 5:47 on the clock. Draw happening just outside the Washington zone. Taken by Hewer. Out there with Palucci, Kazarowski, Caitlin Flanagan, and Morton. Hewer on the draw. Cross to the side. Bottled up on the wall here. Hewer fighting. Flanagan now trying to drive it forward. Washington ends up getting that driven down deep into the Bell Tire zone. Picked up by Morton. Morton's going to freeze it on the wall out front. Good blocker save. I'm sorry, good pad save by Streeter. Another good pad save by Streeter. Now picked out by Kazarowski. Kazarowski moving. Kazarowski 3-on-1 with Hewer and Palucci. Kazarowski over to Palucci. On her skate, couldn't quite control it. Good effort by Palucci to try and get that puck at her stick. And now picked up by Kazarowski. She circles again, dropping it off to Flanagan. Flanagan over to Bowman. Bowman moving it up ice. Getting it to Hewer. Hewer tipping it into the Washington zone. Now chased down by Agbe. Agbe, Markovich out on ice with Dobbs, Bowman, Mackenzie, Flanagan. Washington coming up ice, catching a player in stride. Shot blocked by Streeter again. We're going to have a penalty. Looks like that's going to be on Bowman. So Bell Tire's going to go on to a penalty kill here with Agbe, Dobbs, Martin, and Mackenzie Flanagan. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. Washington with possession. Up top at their point. Dropping it down low. Defended by Martin. Back up top. Defended by Dobbs. Agbe getting a stick on it to disrupt that one-timer. Flanagan's going to shoot up the boards. Getting it past everybody out to neutral, where Washington will reset. Going rink wide neutral. Deflected and picked off by Flanagan and Dobbs. Agbe disrupting in there as well. That's going to be picked up by Flanagan, who's going to send it the length of the ice. As Bell Tire's going to go for a line change, bringing out Palucci, Hewer, along with Caitlin Flanagan, Martin. Washington coming back up ice. Palucci in a foot race. Going across, picked up by Hewer. Martin backhanding out. Resets Washington on that backhand, and Washington goes back in. Off a skate, picked up by Hewer. Hewer trying to get a stick on it. Now picked up by Martin. Just below us, Martin, Hewer, Palucci. Martin bailing out. Looks like we're going to have an offsides call. All right. Draw is going to happen just outside the Bell Tire zone with 57 seconds on this penalty kill left. We're going to have Hewer, Palucci, Martin, and Flanagan. We have Caitlin out there. Hewer tied up at the dot. Washington with possession. Sending it across for neutral. Martin chasing. Martin getting a stick on it and taking the player down in the process. A puck goes up top. Shot in is going to be kicked aside by Streeter momentarily. And a backdoor player from Washington is going to knock it in to make this a 1-0 game for Washington. All right, so Bell Tire is going to go down by 1 here. Back out on ice as we reset, looking for the even up score. Dobbs, Markovich, Agbe, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Morton. Dobbs tied up at center ice here. Picking it free is Agbe. Agbe going now wide. She's going to dump it in and let Markovich go to work in the corner. Markovich sending it around. That's going to come up top. Washington now going to have Morton in a foot race. Morton winning the foot race and getting hooked the entire way down the ice, but comes out with the puck anyways. Shot in, kicked aside by Flanagan. Picked up by Washington at the half wall, dumped in behind the Bell Tire net. Now Morton to the left of Streeter, sends it out, and it gets reset. Picked up by Flanagan here. Flanagan moving it up ice. Finding Evans. Evans breaking free a little bit here. Looking for Cruciano, standing out front with her stick down, ready for the goal. And Clemens back in on ice. Martin and Caitlin Flanagan in on D. Flanagan backhanding it up the boards. Now at neutral, and Washington circling Cruciano, just being a menace. And Washington finally dumping it in. Martin's going to be coming in here in the corner, getting it up the boards. Finding Clemens, rolls off her stick, goes back behind the Bell Tire net. And finally trying to get it clear. Shot in, goes wide of the net. Martin clearing that puck out on the rebound off the back wall. And that puck bouncing around too much in front of this net. Trying to work it free. Cruciano finally gets it free. Martin drives it up to Cruciano, who gets it clear. All right, Washington now coming back through neutral. Caitlin Flanagan on D. Washington takes a short angled shot, goes wide, picked up at the point. Shot blocked by Kazarowski and goes over top of the net. Now Palucci gets a stick on it. Centering pass, misses its mark. Kazarowski chasing it up to the point. Clears the zone. Kazarowski with a stick lift momentarily, and now this comes back into the zone, defended by Martin. Picked up by Palucci. Palucci going rink wide, finding Kazarowski with a little bit of open ice. Kazarowski moving out on the ice with Palucci stepping in the corner. Mackenzie Flanagan, Bowman out for D on Beltire. Washington coming back up through neutral. Gaining the Beltire zone, defended by Flanagan. Mackenzie with the stop, bringing it up to Heward. Heward dumping it deep. Beltire line change going out for Agbe, Markovich, and Dobbs. Washington passing it behind their own net. Going to go to the half wall, pick it up by Mackenzie in neutral. And Washington now sending it deep. Bowman with a stick to block that attempt at the shot. And it goes hard into the corner where Dobbs is there to help. Pick it up. Dobbs moving it up to Agbe. Agbe, I don't know if that was a tip, but we're going to call it a tip in. He's going now hard behind the net. Pass out front, Dobbs. Out front, puck is loose. Picked up by Martin. Martin moving it back to Caitlin Flanagan. Shot in. Is going to be blocked aside. Tipped back in by Agbe momentarily. The Washington regains possession in the slot and now works their way out to neutral. This is going to be dumped in, picked up by Flanagan. That'll be the end of this first period of play. Beltire down by 1. We had a nice cut just before the game starts, so we will do a nice cut between 2 and 3. Just a momentary words of encouragement from Coach Dan. All right, Beltire ready to take on the second period, even this game out. Streeter going back to her net. Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Martin, Mackenzie Flanagan on ice for Beltire. There we go. Dobbs on the draw. Tied up at the dot. Pick free. Martin shoving it forward. Getting it over to Dobbs and Markovich. Push through over to Agbe. Flanagan going to Martin. Martin going up top to Markovic. And now coming back through. Martin turning up corner, up the wall. And that puck bouncing out free to Agbe. Agbe's pass dropped back into the Bell Tire zone where Mackenzie Flanagan's chasing. Pass across, blocked by Martin, sent to the back of the net. Back up top for Washington, blocked by Agbe. Washington down to the half wall. Centering pass in the slot, backhanded, back to the corner. Martin to chase, coming out front, blocked by Streeter. Back up top goes Washington. And at the half wall, Washington continues to keep possession. Shot in, blocker to side by Streeter, picked up by Markovic. That's going to clear the zone. Picked up by Washington in neutral as Bell Tire goes for a line change. Washington now on a drive. Martin to defend, pushing it behind the net. Cleared out by Hewer, picked up by Agbe. Pushing it up the wall, to trying to get Palucci, but that's going to make its way down for an icing. We'll go for another line change. Kazarowski jumping out with Palucci, Hewer, Morton, and Caitlin Flanagan. .15:41 on this clock. Puck is down. Washington sending it around the Bell Tire net where it's going to be picked up by Palucci. Palucci trying to go up top, finding Hewer. Hewer sneaking it ahead a little bit, picked up by Washington. Sent ahead. Morton jumping that pass and gets it up into the zone momentarily. Now picked up by Caitlin Flanagan as she's taken down. Kazarowski jumps in to help. Kazarowski off the back wall, finding Morton. Morton turning up ice, going up to Palucci. Palucci passing it around the Washington player down into the corner where she's going to tie it up and wait for Kazarowski to jump in and help. Poking it free. Evans is there to help. Evans getting it out. Evans looking to try and get it dropped down. Evans off the wall. Down to Morton. Morton going across to Flanagan. Flanagan shot in, blocked, and it was in the air, and the goalie reached out for that one and brought it down. 14:41 on the clock. So we've got Clemens, Evans, Cristiano, Caitlin Flanagan, and Morton on ice for Bell Tire. 14:41. This draw happening to the left of the Washington goalie. Washington winning it back to their corner, sending it around the board where Morton's there to pick it up at the half. And now Washington regains possession, sending it wide. It's going to be chased by Evans, gets it up the wall, picked up by Cruciano, who dumps it deep. Clemens driving to the net, Cruciano going to the corner. Clemens now going to the corner in the half wall. Al Bowman, who just jumped on ice for Bell Tire on D, stepped in to help. Flanagan come in. Flanagan's shot is blocked and picked up by Washington at the half wall. Coming out free where Bowman's there to collect. And Washington now gaining the zone momentarily until Dobbs takes possession. Dobbs making a couple moves, making some players miss, jumping in, backhanding it towards the net, waiting for her support. Shot by Markovic, goes wide now, and that's going to be Washington is going down the ice with their puck or their stick held up. Martin blocking that pass in, and that is going to almost get out. Where now Martin picks it up. Martin going up to Agbe. Agbe getting it up the wall. Washington intercepts in their own zone, coming out through neutral. This is going to be defended by Martin and Markovic. Martin stops it at the half wall, and that puck comes down, and Bowman's going to send it to the opposite side where it's picked up by Washington. Sending it across, Agbe trying to intercept that pass where Hewer now dumps it deep into the Washington zone. Palucci, and now it's picked up by Martin in neutral. Martin lost it at the, I don't know what's going on. There's something happening. A Washington player grabbed her face, and Martin was on the ice, so not sure what happened there, but we are back at it. Gazarowski is stick handling around with Palucci with a quick shot, goes wide of the net, picked up by Washington. And now we've got Martin stepping back in, dumping it deep, delayed off sides. Beltire tagging up. Palucci, Kazarowski, Evans on ice for Beltire. Palucci getting a stick on it. And Flanagan, now Evans. Evans walking back. Evans going over to Martin. Martin walking across, going off cross ice, looking for Palucci just past her stick, goes for an icing. 12:23 on the clock. Flanagan, Morton, Evans, Rusciano, and Clements on ice for Beltire. This draw happening to the right of Streeter in the Beltire zone. Evans to take it. Washington winning it back to their point. Quick shot in, just kind of bounces around, and McKenzie picks it up, goes wide to Clemens. Clemens backhanded looking for Cruciano as she was breaking out. Washington dumping it back in behind the Beltire net, picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan moving it up. Oh, that pass is intercepted. Shot in, blocked by Streeter. And now tied up in the corner. Coming out with the puck is Washington. That puck now at the half wall. Cruciano picking it up, moving it up ice, going to neutral. And Washington breaking that breakout down and going back in, where they make it past and they go to behind the Beltire net. Cruciano trying to chip it through the half wall. Dobbs picks it up, going across to Clemens. Clemens now coming free, looking for a pass to Dobbs. Icing wave. Dobbs is going to wait for her team as she goes behind the Washington net, held up a little bit. Markovich out with Agbe. And Caitlin Flanagan's going to dump it back down deep into the into the Washington zone. Up top, misses the mark and rolls, and it's not going to make it that far, where Caitlin Flanagan picks it up in her own zone, sending it up for McKenzie. McKenzie moving it up ice, finding Markovich. Markovich shot in, goes wide of the net. This is going to come all the way to the side, where it's going to be chipped almost back in by Flanagan. Bowman now on the side, and Markovich shot in, goes wide of the net. It's going to be picked up at the half wall by Washington as they clear the zone. Palucci stepping out, disrupting that play, getting it sent back down deep where Hewer's chasing. Hewer going behind the Washington net. Kazarowski at the half wall. Hewer, what is that penalty? We got a hooking penalty on Hewer. The plague of the penalties with Beltire. We are still trying to maintain that lead in penalty minutes here at the JWHL. Not sure I agree with all of them. Dobbs, Agbe, McKenzie Flanagan, Martin out on ice for Beltire. And that puck is down and out up to Washington at their point. Sending it across. Back across, that barely stayed in the zone. Now drumming down into the corner where Martin's going to contain, driving her around the net. Martin still chasing around, containing. That player goes up top, sending it across. Stepping in, shot in, is going to get blockered out. Blocked by Agbe, cleared up. And Agbe with a little bit of a step here. Agbe just loses her footing as Washington chases down the puck behind their own net. Palucci stepping in for Beltire. Agbe breaking up the pass. Agbe putting in the effort down here. Just bodying Washington. Palucci trying to break out with that puck. Washington finally getting it free. This is going to be chased down by Martin as they dump it down deep into the Beltire zone. And now McKenzie Flanagan's going to pick it up in the corner. Picked up by Palucci now at the half wall. That puck rolls up to the point where it's grabbed by Washington. Jumped by Markovich and cleared out of the zone. Now picked up by Martin. Martin going up ice. She's just going to clear it down as McKenzie goes for a line change. Caitlin Flanagan's going to jump out now. Beltire with 45 seconds remaining in the penalty kill. Washington coming back up ice. In neutral. Smothered by Palucci. Palucci holding him out of the zone. Going wide. That errant pass is missed initially, and Washington regains possession down in the corner until Caitlin Flanagan steps in to keep that puck moving around. Up to the half wall, down to the point. Missed its mark, rolls out to neutral. 22 seconds remaining in the penalty kill. Markovich going for a change. Out jumps Dobbs. Martin to Flanagan. And that pass and shot disrupted by Martin. Now picked up. Martin's going to go off the boards and find Agbe, who's got a step here. Agbe walking in. Agbe taken down. I guess that is no penalty here. So that's going to clear the penalty. Belltire's going to go back to full strength. Morton and Mackenzie Flanagan are going to step out with Dobbs, Kazarowski, and one more player we need. There we go, Palucci. All right, Dobbs on this draw. Just to the left of Washington's goalie. Sorry, 8:29 on the clock. Dobbs drops it back to Flanagan. Flanagan's shot is blocked to the side by Washington's goalie. Dumped deep by Morton. Dobbs trying to send it back up to Morton. Misses the mark and goes out to neutral where Kazarowski steps in and keeps that from coming all the way out. Oh, Dobbs was jumping over the boards to try and keep that from being an offsides. But offsides it'll be just outside of the Washington zone. Evans on this draw, and the clock has continued to run. Still running. Clock is now paused. They're going to get time reset on here. All right, 8:18 on that clock. Evans, Cruciano and Washington ready for that puck to drop. There we go. Cruciano tied up. I love her energy. Cruciano dumping that puck into the Washington zone. Picked up by Clemens. Clemens walking in. Shot gets blocked out front. Cruciano back on the hunt here. And Flanagan's going to drive down deep into her own territory behind her net. Reversing back over to Morton. Morton coming up ice. Going center to Evans. Evans going wide to Clemens. Clemens shot in. Goes to the corner. And it just barely misses Cruciano. And now goes out to neutral. Walking in. Mackenzie Flanagan stops that rush. Passes to Evans. Evans gains his own. Going to Cruciano. It was offside. So we will tag back up. And now we can go back at it. Stepped in by Bowman. Now Palucci down into the corner. Palucci's going to try and move it around, and it's picked up by Bowman. Move it up to the half wall. Now up to the point for Washington. Washington's shot in, goes wide of the net. It's going to be picked up by Kazarowski on the half wall. Picked up now by Hewer, going to Palucci. Palucci wasn't quite ready for it, and now it moves around over into the corner. Bowman and Martin out on D. Kazarowski down at the half wall, trying to find a place to go. Hewer stepping in to help. Now Markovich jumping up. Martin keeping that puck in. Martin shooting it in. That's going to make its way to Markovich. Markovich off the wall, finding Martin. Martin going back down to Markovich. Markovich making a move. Markovich at the half wall. Shot in. Going to go off of the goalie. And now she's going to come up top to Bowman. Bowman going back down. Markovich hauled down. No call here. Hewer is taken down behind the net where Agbe now has the puck. Coming out. Agbe, slot shot. Gloved by Washington and then dropped. Now it's coming back out. This is going to be picked up by Martin. Stopping that rush. Picked up by Agbe. Agbe in neutral. Agbe off the wall. Washington gains possession. Washington coming up through center ice. Agbe picking that puck free. And Washington somehow kept that in the zone. Now Martin going wide, looking for Dobbs. And it's going to miss its mark from Dobbs. Oh, no icing is waved. All right. That puck from Dobbs goes off the wall, picked up by Evans. Dobbs and Evans, that puck is just stuck right where it's at. Still hasn't moved till Clemens picks it free. Comes up to Flanagan. Flanagan sends it back down deep. Dobbs behind the net. Dobbs moving up the wall. Martin jumping in. Martin going towards the net. Caught by Dobbs. Dobbs going up top. Flanagan shot in. Going to go wide of the net. Now it's going to be picked up by Martin on the half wall. Martin walking in. Shot across. It's click free. Now Martin again, sending it back down deep. Behind the net's Evans. Evans going up top. That's going to come out of the zone. Beltire's going to have to reset. Flanagan making a move to get around 2 Washington players. Gaining the zone. Coming up through. Passing to Cruciano. Cruciano now going up the corner. And Cruciano is checked into the boards there. That's going to be a play here. Martin's coming back out. Going off to Flanagan. Flanagan waiting for their 6th skater on this delayed penalty, going across to Cruciano. Cruciano trying to keep that puck moving forward, and now finally freezing play with Washington tagging the puck. 4:38 on the clock. Beltire's going to go on to power play where they need to capitalize in these last 2 minutes here. 4:38 on the clock. Capitalize on this power play. We're going to have out Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Martin. Just to the left of Washington's goalie. Puck is down. Dobbs, one back to Martin. Martin going across to Markovich. Markovich dropping it back to Flanagan. Now Martin in a foot race with Washington. Martin racing back. Stick lift to keep that puck moving forward. Going up to Markovich. Markovich now resetting. Markovich to Flanagan. Flanagan back to Markovich. Markovich down low to Dobbs. Dobbs out front to, oh, Agbe, what a shot. What a save by the Washington goalie. Kudos to her. 1:31 on this clock. Flanagan back to pick that puck up in her own zone. Settle down behind her net. She comes out. Going up to Dobbs. Dobbs gaining neutral. Dobbs dropping it for Markovich. Markovich dropping it back down to Dobbs. Dobbs now back to Markovich. Markovich going up top to Flanagan. Flanagan going back to Markovich. Markovich going across to Martin. Martin shot in. Oh, wide of the net. Good tip opportunity by Dobbs. Dumping it back in is Markovich, and Washington's going to clear that down with 57 seconds remaining here in this power play for Beltire. Flanagan coming up through. Going wide, looking for Hewer. Hewer, Palucci, Kazarowski out. Caitlin Flanagan, Martin, Hewer. Behind the behind the Washington net, goes up to Palucci. Palucci going to Flanagan. Flanagan to Palucci. Palucci walking in. Going down to Hewer. Hewer going across to Martin. Martin. Shot! Martin's going to find the back of the net to tie this one up on that power play. All right. So we are going to have a tie game here. 3:09 on the clock. As we reset play, we're going to have out Cruciano, Evans, Clemens, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Orton. Cruciano ready to go. Morton dumping it deep into the Washington zone. Beltire feeling the momentum here. Half wall, Washington, Cruciano coming out. And that puck's going to go deep. Icing wave picked up by Flanagan. Mackenzie going up to Cruciano. Cruciano trying to tip it ahead for Evans. Couldn't quite get it there. Now Washington gaining the zone. Chased by Morton. Morton drives her to the back of the net. Centering pass, nobody home. Cruciano drives it into the half wall. And Clemens gets a stick on it to get that clear out to neutral. 2:32 on the clock. Washington goes wide. Missed opportunity there. Oh, no. And Cruciano loses an edge. And Washington gains the Beltire zone. Driving down into the corner. And that is Dobbs trying to push it out. Blocked by Streeter here. Picked up by Mackenzie Flanagan. Flanagan going up top. Off the wall. And looks like Agbe's trying to catch up to it. Agbe's going to get there. Agbe walking around, going up top to Caitlin. Flanagan shot in. It's going to go wide of the net. He picked up by Bowman on the half wall. Bowman sending it back down deep for Agbe. Agbe keeping it moving around. Looking at the half wall where Washington picks it up. And it's cleared. And goes out where Bowman's going to collect in her zone. Bowman going off the wall, finding Agbe. Agbe driving it down deep into the Washington zone where they're just going to cover it up. Reset. Okay, 1:33 on the clock. Bowman, Caitlin Flanagan, Hewer, Palucci, Kazarowski out for Bell Tire. Hewer on this draw. Puck is down. Hewer, what a win across. That puck rolled all the way to the corner. Now Palucci chasing behind the net. Centering pass. Kazarowski hammers one. And it just goes wide of the net. What is the whistle for? Oh, the puck was stuck in the back of the net. That was an awesome shot. She hammered that thing. All right, here goes Hewer on the draw. Stuck at the dot. Washington clearing it free. Bowman sending it up the boards. Picked up by Palucci. Palucci, center ice, goes up, trying to find Kazarowski in stride. Didn't quite hit it. Now Palucci facing down into the Washington zone. Picked up by Hewer. Hewer in the slot. Hewer shot is going to get covered up by the goalie. And now some fireworks in front of that Washington net. 1 minute exactly on the clock. We're going to have a line change, bringing out Dobbs, Agbe, Markovich, Martin, and Mackenzie Flanagan. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. One back. Markovich to Flanagan. Flanagan, shot in, gets tipped, and now moves it up ahead. It's Washington. That's going to go down for an icing. All right, that puck is down. One back. Agbe to Flanagan. Flanagan shot. Gets tipped to the corner. Picked up by Dobbs. And that puck moves its way to half wall. Shooting it up ahead over to the side where Martin is. Martin drives down into the corner. Freezes that puck behind the net. Pushing it around for Dobbs. And now breaking out is Washington. That puck's blocked by bodies out front. Markovich coming up ice. He's going to dump it deep. 23 seconds running on this clock. Washington behind their own net. Washington driving up, coming through neutral. Line change on Bell Tire. Brought out Clemens, Evans, Cruciano. Evans chasing Washington to the corner, up top to their point. All point to point. Out of the half wall. Disrupted by Mackenzie Flanagan. Flanagan turning it up the boards. Makes it to the half wall. Martin blocking that shot in is going to end the second period. We're going to go into the third, all tied up with Washington. We're going to go for an ice cut and be back in 10 minutes. All right, Bell Tire. Final period of the JWHL. We're hopefully going to be able to live stream some of the states games, but just as a heads up, you sometimes get mad at us for doing that. We will do our very best. But here we go for this last period of play in Washington. Bell Tire trying to knock this one down. We've got Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Flanagan, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Martin starting out for Bell Tire. Agbe making a move over to Markovich with some open ice. Markovich hitting the brakes, going back up the wall, finding Martin. Martin going inside. Shot on net is going to be gloved by Washington. Freeze play. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. Won that back to Flanagan. Good win. Shot in. Is going to be gloved again by Washington's goalie. Freeze play. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. Washington won that back to their corner. Firing it up the wall. Markovich trying to keep that deep for Agbe. Washington breaking out. Sending that cross ice. That'll go over to Martin. Martin's going to pick that up in her own zone. That puck getting hung up. There is just an absolute puddle of water back there. That makes its way out to Markovich, fortunately, and goes wide over to Agbe. Agbe is just going to dump it in and go for a change. That puck getting stuck behind those nets where they poured some pools earlier with the Zamboni. Morton jumping on ice, hammering that one down deep into the Washington zone. Hewer out there with Bellucci, Kazarowski, Caitlin Flanagan, and Morton picked up by Kazarowski off the wall to herself, walking in, pass it across to Bellucci. One-timer goes wide of the net, picked up out by Kazarowski. Kazarowski going up the wall, going across over to Morton. Shot in, going to go wide of the net. Picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan shot in, goes behind the net. Tripped up on the play is Bellucci, and now goes to the corner at the half wall where Kazarowski sends it back down deep for Bellucci to go back to work. Bellucci being held up on the play, stepped in. Flanagan shot, goes wide of the net. Cruciano at the half wall, driving into the corner. Bellucci going for a change. Washington coming out with the puck, going up top, finding Morton. Morton going to Flanagan. Flanagan's going to go across looking for Evans. That puck goes deep. Evans is going to go to work behind the Washington net with Clemens and Cruciano. Cruciano behind the net right now, waiting for that puck to pop out. It does, and goes off Cruciano, where Morton steps in and tries to drive that puck around. Now, Cruciano going up the boards, finding Caitlin Flanagan. Flanagan's shot gets tipped around out front and goes over top of the net. At the half wall, Washington finally clears, just out of reach of Flanagan, but she catches up to it, turns up ice. Makes a move past one Washington player, hits it around up to Agbe. Agbe walking in, Agbe shot. Wide of the net, picked up, and up the half wall to Markovich. Markovich walking in, Markovich shot is gloved by Washington's goalie. Bell Tire having an awesome first start of this period. Keep up this pressure. Dobbs, Markovich, Agbe, Bowman, Mackenzie Flanagan on ice for Bell Tire. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. Washington moving it around their net. Up the half wall. Coming up through neutral. Gaining the Bell Tire zone. Shot in. Goes wide of the net. Up top. And that puck in the slot bounces around. Comes up to the point. Down in the corner. Shot in. Blocked out front. Bowman trying to get that puck clear. Centering pass. Picked up by Markovich. Markovich going up ice. Going to dump it and go for a line change. Kazarowski, Hewer, Bellucci, Martin, Mackenzie Flanagan on ice for Bell Tire. Washington moving it up. Martin collecting it in her zone. Moving it up the boards. Back out to neutral. Kazarowski chases. Washington Backhand up to Hewer. Hewer to Palucci. Palucci now with a little bit of room. Palucci shot is going to go over top of the net. Picked up here by Martin. Martin's going one-timer back in. Blocked by Hewer, trying to get a redirect on it. Flanagan gets it into the center ice where it's tipped by Washington and moved back in by Kazarowski. Caitlin, oh, goodness gracious. I don't know who that was. Palucci taken down again. We're going to get an interference call on Washington. So that interference will put Beltire up onto a power play, which will bring out Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Martin, and Mackenzie Flanagan. 12:58 on this clock. 1-1 in the score. One back to Martin. Martin going across to Flanagan. Flanagan going down to Markovich. Markovich trying to go back up to Flanagan. Hit a skate and cleared by Washington. Streeter playing that behind her net. This is going to be picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan moving up ice. Going up to Dobbs and Markovich. Markovich going to hit the brakes at the line and get pinned. Markovich trying to battle it free. And Flanagan dumps it down into Dobbs' territory down in the corner. Dobbs back up to Markovich. Markovich up to Flanagan. Flanagan shot in. He's going to get blocked out front and cleared out by Washington on net. Played up to Mara Flanagan. Flanagan's going up to Markovich. Markovich walking in. He's going to dump it. That line's going to go for a change, bringing out Hewer and Palucci. Washington's going to clear that back down. This is going to bring us to 1 minute remaining in this power play. Palucci grabbing that puck behind her own net. Palucci coming up ice. Moving it out to Kazarowski. Kazarowski to Hewer. Hewer gains the zone. Hewer going to drop back for Flanagan. Flanagan moving it to Palucci. Palucci walking in, down to Hewer. Hewer going back up top. Flanagan going down to Martin. Martin twisting or turning, centering pass, going down into the corner. Back up top for Flanagan. Flanagan cross center ice. Gaining the zone, dumping it in. Beltire line change, going out. He's going to bring out Markovich and Dobbs. Martin now walking the line. Martin going down to Dobbs. Dobbs behind the net. Dobbs making a break, turning back. Trying to go up top for Flanagan. Flanagan making a move around. Dropping it off for Dobbs. Washington player missing a stick now. Markovich. Going back up top for Flanagan. Flanagan moving into the slot. Smothered by Washington. Breaking up top to Martin. Martin, one-time shot. It's going to just bounce past the net. And Dobbs is going to be back there to battle for that down in the corner. So Washington now going off the boards. Picked up by Martin. Martin sends it back down deep. Picked up by Markovich. Markovich looking for Agbe, who is open. And that puck's going to make its way free now. Washington loses control of the puck. Picked up by Evans. Evans goes off the boards. And that penalty is cleared off now. So we are at even strength on both teams. This is going to be chased down by Martin behind her net. Martin moving in into the corner. Moving it up for Evans. Evans slams it back the opposite way. Picked up. And going back through to Clemens. Loses control. Beltire's got to gain control of this puck. Flanagan going wide. Looking for Evans. That puck's going to be waved for icing. Beltire's going for a line change, which is going to bring out Morton and Caitlin Flanagan. Dobbs, Hewer, and Morton with the puck right now, dumping it deep. She's going to go ahead and chase. She makes it to the puck first and has Hewer stepping in to help. Hewer dragged down on, and that puck is hand passed around. It was absolutely a hand pass. All right. Washington coming up through center ice here. Gaining the zone, Morton. And that backhanded shot is covered up by Streeter to freeze play with 9 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. You were on this draw. You were kicked out. Kazarowski, Palucci, Hewer, Caitlin Flanagan, Morton. Puck one back. Morton going across. Intercepted by Washington. Sent back around to the half wall. Picked up by Kazarowski. Kazarowski still at the half wall. Puck being picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan's going to move it back up to Hewer. Hewer turning up ice. Going up top to Kazarowski. Kazarowski trying to get it wide to Palucci. Washington regaining possession at the half wall. Washington walking in. Short angled shot. Missed the net. Picked up at the half wall by Washington. Chased by Kazarowski. And moving up top now. Kazarowski with a step, diving to get that puck out. Now Palucci diving to get that puck into the Washington zone as Bell Tire goes for a line change. Palucci held down. And we're going to go back onto a Bell Tire power play with 8 minutes and 35 seconds. Bell Tire need to capitalize on this opportunity here to put them up in this game. All right, Markovich, Dobbs, Agbay, Martin, Mackenzie, Flanagan. This power play line's produced once in this game. Let's see if we can get it twice. Puck is down. Dobbs won it back to Flanagan. Flanagan to Markovich. Markovich going back down to Agbay. Agbay trying to go across to Martin, who was coming in. And now a little bit of room, but Martin's going to chase down, and Flanagan's going to pick up the puck behind her net. Hitting the brakes, turning back up ice. Bell Tire's going to try and reset. Going up to Agbay. Agbay gaining his own, sending it down deep. This is going to be picked up by Markovich in the corner. That puck coming down. And Flanagan. Flanagan going to Martin. Martin. Shot is gloved by Washington. .128 on the penalty. 8:03 on the clock. Third period, 1-1. Dobbs won that back to Martin. Martin with possession, going down to Markovich. Markovich going up top to Flanagan. Flanagan going back to Markovich. Markovich down, over across. And at the half wall, it's going to be picked up by Washington. Martin trying to chase it down. Now Martin's going to grab a penalty on this one. Has her stick thrown in the process. All right, so we're going to go 4-on-4 hockey. Martin not thrilled with the hooking call that they are calling on her, or claiming. But we've got 4-on-4 here for 1 minute and 6 seconds. And Bell Tire will go on to a penalty kill for 56 seconds with 7 minutes and 41 in the game. Washington shot in, goes around. It's going to come up all the way to the point where Washington's going to keep it in. This is even strength hockey. And that's going to find the back of the net. Put Washington up by 2, up by 1. All right, so as we get going again here, Evans, Clemens, Flanagan's out on ice for Bell Tire. 4-on-4 for 53 more seconds. Puck is down. Evans won that back to Caitlin Flanagan. Caitlin round in the corner. Caitlin going to try and drive down through to the Washington corner. And now this is picked up by Mackenzie at the point. Mackenzie shot in. It's going to be gloved past. I'm sorry, not gloved. It was past the net. Picked up by Flanagan. Evans going to try and chip it down deep. And Clemens to chase here. Washington's going to shoot that into the Bell Tire zone. It's going to hit off the back wall and come down behind the Bell Tire net. Picked up by Caitlin Flanagan, moving around to Mackenzie. Mackenzie going off the boards, finding Evans. Evans going to Clemens. Clemens chipping it in. Bell Tire going for a line change. That's going to bring out Morton, Dobbs, Agbay, and Flanagan. Mackenzie Flanagan jumped that puck able to get into it, into the slot. Shot, it's going to go wide of the net, off the backboard, and bouncing around. Now Belle Tire onto a penalty kill for 48 seconds. As Washington is back to even strength. That puck intercepted by Dobbs going to work. Agbe going into the half wall. Belle Tire trying to keep this puck pinned down in the Washington zone. Agbe chasing it around where Washington goes to the corner to the left of their goalie. Going up the boards, collected in by Morton. Sent back up the wall. Now frozen just in front of the Belle Tire bench. Have no problem keeping that there for another 20 seconds. That Washington puck goes wide. They gain the zone. Blocked again and covered up by Streeter. And a couple of great shots by Washington, saved by Streeter. 10 seconds on the Martin penalty. And Hewer's going to take the straw out there with Markovich, Bowman, and Caitlin Flanagan. Washington going wide with this puck. Shot in, wide of the net. 3 seconds on Martin's penalty. Martin out of the box now. Going across, getting her offense out there. Caitlin Flanagan driving up against the wall. Puck stuck down deep. Hewer in there to help. Bellucci now checked back in for Belle Tire. 5:24 on this clock. Bowman comes out with the puck. Bowman looking up ice. She's got room to go. Bowman dumping it down deep into the Belle Tire zone. I'm sorry, into the Washington zone. And attacking now behind the Washington net. Evans is going to go. Bowman's going to walk in, take a shot on net. That's going to be blocked aside by Washington's goalie. Carried out by Washington. That's going to go deep for an icing. So as we get going back again here, this is going to be a face-off in the Washington zone. 4 minutes and 52 seconds. Belle Tire looking for the equalizer here. Agbe, Dobbs, Markovich, Martin, Mackenzie Flanagan. Dobbs on the draw, won that back. Dropped down to Flanagan. Flanagan shot in, bounced around, and covered up by Washington's goalie. .449 on the clock. Dobbs on the draw. Same personnel for Belle Tire. Puck is down. Agbe, quick spin move, going to the corner, dropping it back for Flanagan. Flanagan shot in, and that puck was diving deep. Martin jumping in. Markovich at the half wall. Out sent back in by Agbe. Washington coming back up ice. Washington going wide. Markovich getting a stick on it. Martin picking up in the corner. Martin moving it around to Flanagan. Flanagan moving it up the boards. Finding Agbe. Agbe spinning. Agbe walking in now. Agbe with a little bit of a line. Agbe shot bouncing around. And it looked like Markovich was taken down on the backside of that play there. Agbe still with possession of the puck in the corner. And walking out, that puck goes down into the corner again behind the Washington net. Markovich, Agbe going for a change as Evans is out. And Evans blocks that puck, and it momentarily stayed in. Washington regains possession here at center ice. Tied up, and Martin going to push wide here. Clemens jumping in. Clemens at the half wall, gets that puck free. Tries to poke it forward. Evans jumping in to help. Cruciano, Evans, and Martin's going back up the wall. And now it goes down deep into the Belle Tire zone. Picked up by Flanagan. Caitlin Flanagan moving up ice. Caitlin going up, gaining the zone. Shot in. And be covered up by Washington's goalie. Belle Tire line change with 3 minutes and 22 seconds on this clock is going to bring out Hewer, Kazarovski, Bellucci, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Bowman. We need a new DJ here as well. So some slow songs for a hockey game. Puck is down. Washington with possession now, coming up through neutral. Mackenzie Flanagan stopping that rush. Kazarovski sending it ahead as Hewer straddled the line to stay on sides. Bowman trying to keep that puck in. Washington able to gain possession, dumping it down deep into the Bell Tire zone. This is going to be collected by Flanagan, sending it around the boards. And now back around. Flanagan moving it around the Bell Tire net, looking for help. Hewer coming out with it, moving it up to Kazarowski. Kazarowski gonna hit. Kazarowski going up ice, dumping it down into the Washington zone. Stepping out now is Markovich, Agbe, Martin, and Bowman. Icing waved on this. Martin picking it up behind her net, hitting the brakes, going back the other way. Martin breaking free. Martin moving up ice. Martin going to Markovich. Going into the Washington zone. Washington behind their own net. Now Caitlin Flanagan stepping in to keep this puck down deep. Flanagan picked up now across from Agbe, looking for Markovich. Picked up by Hewer. Hewer's going to send it back down deep into the zone. And Mackenzie Flanagan sending it back in on net. Covered up by Washington's goalie. Freezing play with 1 minute and 57 seconds. This is going to be 6-on-5 as Bell Tire has Streeter out of their net. So on ice is Dobbs, Hewer, Markovich, Agbe, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Martin. Puck is down. Washington up top. Flanagan going across to Martin. Martin going to take a shot in. It's going to go wide of the net. Picked up by Markovich. Markovich going to try and drop it up top for Flanagan. Holding off, trying to get Flanagan the puck. And now Agbe. Agbe dropping it back for Flanagan. Flanagan moving ahead. That's going to be picked out by Washington and broken free. Martin's going to chase it down, getting her stick and feet on it. Able to clear that puck around. And now we've got all of the Bell Tire players out in front of this net trying to get this puck free. Shot on, is going to hit the post, picked up by Dobbs. They're down to 1 minute and 20 seconds. That puck's going to go the length of the ice for an icing. And that should bring Streeter back out in net with 1 minute and 10 seconds on this clock. Personnel for Bell Tire is going to be Kazarowski, Clemens. We got too many players out there now. I'd love to play with 6 in a goalie, but I don't think that's how it works. So there we go. We're going to have Kazarowski, Evans, Palucci, Mackenzie Flanagan, and Martin. Kazarowski on the draw. Washington took that out. Gloved by Streeter. The freeze play with 1:05 on the clock. Palucci on this draw now. Puck is down. Washington. Palucci's lapping that down. This is going to be down to Martin. Martin trying to bat it around for Flanagan. Tied up. Evans trying to pick it free. She comes out with it. Evan going up the wall for Palucci. Palucci going back the other way. Palucci trying to gain an edge. Gains the edge. Makes another move around another player. Palucci coming through. Palucci going wide to Kazarowski. 42 seconds on the clock. Kazarowski going wide to Evans. Evans dumping it deep for Palucci. Palucci trying to send it back out front. Washington gaining possession. Going down the boards. That's going to go down for an icing. And Bell Tire's net is empty once again with 29.5 seconds on this clock. They're going to bring it down to the wire. Agbe, Palucci, Markovich, Dobbs. We've got Dobbs, Markovich, Agbe, Kazarowski, and Martin just broke her stick on the face-off. That puck is down. And now rolling around free here. Sent in by Markovich, 14 seconds on this clock. Puck is down deep. They're going to try and freeze this puck behind their net. Picking it free is Dobbs, 5 seconds. That's going to go down in the corner and be held. Well, this will be the end of this period and game for Bell Tire, going down 2-1. Well, listen, these ladies have put everything they have into this weekend. And they're going to come out 2-2-1. Hard fought. And we will see everybody at States. shit, dude, she fucking broke her stick right when she. You see
Did you?
Madeline?
No.
Yeah, she